I was never against Stonewall, because Stonewall was the moment that this tiny movement wanted to be a big movement. What I was against was pursuing progress for our status in society through violence. The question is, I was quoted as saying, rocks through windows do not open doors. And that the way to find public acceptance was not to behave disorderly and go out and riot, but to pursue things through the kind of techniques that were used, nonviolent techniques that were used by Gandhi and used by the African American civil rights movement. And people do not understand that Stonewall happened in a very unusual time. In 1968, Martin Luther King had been killed, and there was absolute rage on the part of the black community. And all over the United States, in almost every town and city, but not in New York, there were riots, and people burned down their own neighborhood in anger. They burned all the bodegas and all these other stores. So when 1969 came, there were nothing but endless articles in the press that black people had actually shot themselves in the foot by going out and rioting and burning down their own neighborhood. Because the few jobs they used to have in the little bodega for local youth were no longer there. And because we had a liberal mayor, when there was disorderly conduct outside the Stonewall bar, which frankly was not so much rioting and burning and throwing of rocks, a lot of it consisted of partying, celebration, sort of a street party, a little bit raucous, but not with any permit, but still not controlled. The police were on their best behavior. So once the press get here, and they have those stories like the Stonewall girls were kicking their hair in curls and doing chorus lines, kicking their feet up at the cops. The cops were on their best behavior. There's a TV camera. If the cops had whipped out a club and hit somebody over the head, that would have been the picture, the story the next day. Police were smart enough to know that all eyes were on them. So they were on their best behavior. Now, they talk about it raging on for days. That's only true to a limited extent. Because after the first night, I came over here on a Sunday night, literally not long after the raid itself, and there was very little activity, because what it was, there was such a police presence that when they see a group of 6, 8, 10, 12 people, they would go over and it would break up. So it was sort of like, I would say not like, they make it sound in the myth, like it was a raging battle on the streets for 5 days or something. It was not. It was heavy police presence with sort of guerrilla groups popping up here, and the police went after them. But what this caused was it really had gotten the gay community angry. Now, you have to understand why Stonewall happened was not just because there was a police raid, not just because there was a mayor that kept the police under control when people protested that action, but it was also because the debate, the public debate, which we were having on the airways, had gone from how do we cure homosexuals because they're all mentally ill, all psychiatrists agree on that. The question now was, are they ill or aren't they ill? Because Evelyn Hooker had done studies that showed that there were apparently a group of 50 well-adjusted men, half of them gay, half of them straight. They gave them Rorschach tests, and they gave them to the experts to grade, and the experts determined that all 50 were what they appeared to be. They were well-adjusted, functioning people. And that actually challenged one of the basic things about psychiatry. It challenged the basic myth that homosexuality in and of itself was a mental illness. So we had all that, and I think also the agitation in the street, the proliferation of these small groups, these kind of things that we made, being on TV, being on radio. I was on hundreds of radio shows and dozens of TV appearances in those early years, in the early 60s. And I think it's very much like the Rosa Parks story. You can only keep people beaten down as long as they feel like they're nothing or they have no chance to protest. Consciousness of the black people have been raised to the point of saying, oh, we're really tired of being treated this way. They don't have the right to treat us this way. That's exactly the same thing that happened at Stonewall. So Stonewall, you can say, was the Rosa Parks sitting sitting in the seat and demanding her right to be treated as an equal on the bus. Stonewall is demanding our rights to be treated as equals on all levels of society. That was a huge step, because it was almost like some sleeping giant woke up, and overnight the movement went from being 50 small organizations to being, I think, 2,500 within 1 year.